afternoon, everyone. I'm so excited to be here today with Kara Yarnot. Thank you so much. I very much appreciate you being here, and it's a pleasure to have you here. She is the CEO of Meritage Talent Solutions, and they identify talent who thrive. So, Kara, I was wondering if you would be able to tell us a little bit about your background and what your role is at Meritage Talent Solutions.
Yes. Carolyn, thank you so much for having me today. I'm really excited to be here and chat with you, tell you a little bit about myself. I have been in the talent space now almost exactly 30 years.
Wow.
And I accidentally became a recruiter all the way back in the 1900s, as I like to say. My very first job out of college was with Intel in Northern California. I was hired by them to be a supply line planner, so nothing to do with recruiting. They tapped me to go back to my alma mater, Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, as the recent college graduate to go to the career fair and talk to current students about what it's like to be a new employee at Intel. And as I'm standing there at the career fair with the college recruiter and a couple of hiring managers, listening to them talk about their jobs and watching the college recruiter do what she was doing, it struck me. I was like, wait a minute. This is a job. You can have a job as a recruiter talking about how great it is to work at Intel and evaluate people to be a good fit here. It's like I had no idea that there were careers like this. So I made it a vow right there and standing at my old campus that that was the career I wanted to have. And in less than 18 months, I was a recruiter full time, and I've never looked back almost 3 decades later. So I've spent the next 17 years of my career working in corporations for brands that you know, like Intel and Boeing. And then I worked in the construction industry. I worked in IT consulting. I was a recruiter, but most of my time I spent as a recruiting leader. So I led college and diversity recruiting at Boeing. I led recruiting in the construction industry. I was VP of talent acquisition at a large US federal government contractor called SAIC, based here in Northern Virginia, outside of DC, where I live now. I had that role for about 7 years. And then as that company was going through a major transformation, that's when I decided to go through a major transformation. And I came to the consulting side of the business. And I opened Meritage Talent Solutions the first time in 2013. For 4 years, I had my own consultancy helping organizations look at their talent acquisition practices from a strategic perspective, from a process perspective, from a technology perspective. And I had that with a small team for about 4 years. And then I took that practice inside a recruitment marketing agency for the next 8. And just earlier, January of 2025, I decided it was time to do it on my own again. So I came back out and relaunched Meritage just on my own this time. It's me all by myself now since January of 2025. So what I really do is help organizations of all sizes and all industries really look at how their talent attraction and selection processes impact retention. And so we're really thinking about it from a business perspective, because retention is really a big part of an organization's overall profit calculation. And what we do in attraction and selection has a big impact on how organizations retain their employees. So that is the strategic approach that I'm bringing to organizations based on all of my years working inside organizations of different industries and different sizes.
Of course. Well, wow. Sounds like a fascinating story. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. Hopefully, we'll hear a little bit more about the fun job.
Yes.
And I was wondering, Kara, can you tell us a little bit about the values and the mission of Meritage Talent Solutions, please?
Sure. So the values from the organization standpoint really focus on innovation. And innovation means different things. it's not just innovation for innovation's sake. It's really innovation tied to an organization's business goals. So innovation inside the agriculture industry from a talent perspective could be very different than innovation inside a technology industry from their recruiting standpoint. So it's innovation as that's aligned to our organization, to our clients' organizational goals. So it's really a flexible approach from that standpoint. And then it's candidate and user alignment. So I really look at it as user alignment. So the users in the organizations that we work with really have multiple perspectives. So there's candidates, there are the recruiters and the HR staff, and then there's our hiring managers and the people making the decisions. And so we really look to make sure that all solutions we bring forward optimize what all three of those constituencies are looking at. And then finally, it's really community. I'm a big believer in we have a very big impact on what we do to the community. And getting a job and making a decision about what job you're going to take is one of the bigger decisions that people make in their lives. You make decisions about, where you're going to live, who you're going to spend your time with, where school you're going to go to. And changing jobs is a big life decision. And things that my organization advises people on impact that big decision. And that is about community as well, and how we impact people's lives. So that's another part of the values of the organization.
Yeah, it sounds very customized then, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. Would you be able to tell us a little bit? I know you've talked about this, but what are more the specifics of the product you deliver?
Sure, sure. So we'll really divide services into a couple of key areas, four actually. The first one is around attraction. So that is really looking at how an organization attracts individuals to their company or organization. It may not be an actual for-profit company because we have worked with nonprofits in the past. So attraction is really about how do you tell prospective candidates who you are and what it's like to work in your organization. So it's not just saying there could be two, for example, pharmaceutical companies that are after the exact same skill sets of individuals, but individual people may be more attracted to working at pharmaceutical company A than pharmaceutical company B because their environments are very different. One may be very fast paced, may make decisions very quickly, may reorganize regularly, may have very different ways of evaluating talent and promoting people. And the other may be more regimented, may move more slowly, may have a more traditional career path kind of environment. So a scientist with the two scientists with the same degree, with the same types of training, one may be more attracted to one company than the other. So as an organization, your job in attraction is to build your value proposition, how you're explaining who you are to an organization that communicates to those scientists who you are as an organization and what a relationship with them as an employee would look like, so that those candidates can help self-select into company A or company B, and move the process along much more quickly. Those people are going to be more likely to stay if they get into the right company. If
Yeah.
someone doesn't like to move quickly and doesn't like rapid decisions and is very uncomfortable in change, they're going to be a better fit in company B. So let's tell them who you are up front. Let's not wait till they get all the way through your hiring process or, God forbid, become an employee to find out that's not where they're comfortable. Let's help in attraction them understand who you are through how you write your job descriptions, what you put on your career site, how your hiring managers talk about the job through the selection process, what your recruiters say when they're out and about at career fairs and at events, what you're doing on social media, what your team is saying, how you're presenting your new hires on social media, what your employees are talking about. You can tell all of that story authentically and help those scientists select themselves away from you if you're not the right fit and really run to you if they are the right fit. So your recruiters, instead of looking at 500 people not knowing if they're a fit for you or not, they look at 100 people who are a fit because you've clearly communicated who you are. And now they're just seeing, oh, did they have the exact degree? Did they do the right kind of lab work that we need for this specific position? And now your recruiters have less screening to do and more recruiting and selling and telling the story and getting them excited about the
I
job. So
love
that's
that.
what we do in the attract line of our business, is
Okay.
really help people bring those stories forward. A, discover who they are if they don't know. You'd be surprised at how many organizations don't fully know because they've been told the wrong story, that they have to be attract everybody. No, no, we don't want to attract everybody. We want to attract the right candidates. That's who we're truly after. We're attracting the right people to your organization and attraction.
I love it. That's
Yes.
great. So that's just
That's
one.
just one service line.
Okay,
The
okay.
second service line is selection, which is very much related. But now that we've attracted the right people, we need to select the right people into the right jobs. So
Mm,
depending on the company, everybody's got infrastructure jobs, you've got procurement jobs and accounting jobs and HR jobs, but you also have the jobs that drive whatever business you do. So we need to build structures around how we select people. And this gets, in a lot of depth. I'm a big believer in competency models, and my organization always drives forward with those. And so I talk a lot and do consulting around we need to have competencies that are aligned for the whole organization. So there are some competencies that you need to be successful in our organization, no matter what job you're in.
mhm.
So, whatever those might be. So, there's a whole exercise around selecting those competencies that align with our organizational values. Maybe they are collaboration. Maybe it's an organization where whether you are on the front line of the manufacturing facility, or you're an accountant, or you are a procurement specialist, to be successful here, you have to collaborate. That could be one. So we go through a whole exercise with leaders of the organization about what are those things. And in order to work anywhere in this organization, you have to have somewhere between 2 and 3 core competencies across the organization. And what this does in a couple of ways is we screen up front. We have our recruiters screen everybody for those competencies. So even if you're a systems engineer or the receptionist, you have to have these competencies.
Mm,
So once you come in the door, that makes you much easier to move around the organization.
right.
And there are a lot of studies that show us, there's one I quote in my book that tells us that individuals who make one move inside a company, so they move a job one time, they are 40% more likely to stay an additional 3 years at a company
Wow.
with one move. So
Seriously.
if we screen people that are a good fit no matter what the job is, we are increasing the likelihood that they'll move inside the company. So now we're increasing retention. And when people stay longer, the company saves money because Gallup
Mhm.
tells us that the cost to replace an employee is somewhere between 50% and 200% of their salary. So,
Wow.
yes,
That's
yes,
crazy.
it's crazy. So, if we can keep people longer, and the Bureau of Labor Statistics tells us that the average tenure, the median tenure of an employee is just under 4 years. So if the median tenure is just under 4 years, but I can get them to move one time, I can make that almost
Right.
7 years.
Right.
And then we're saving the company money because I'm not turning people over. So this all starts to become a profitability
Yeah.
conversation. So we
And
get to this exercise and selection of finding out what does it take to be successful here. Let's make sure everybody coming in the door has those competencies. Then we start to increase our retention. We start saving the company money in the long term.
yeah, I don't want to veer off track of
Yes,
the question, which
yes,
is you were telling us about the four methods
yes.
that you use, but like, oh my God, I forgot my question now.
But I mentioned my book.
Pardon me?
But I mentioned my book. Where's did my
Yeah,
book?
yeah, go
Well,
ahead,
okay,
please.
because the book is related to the
Okay,
services. So
awesome.
my book is called The Talent Trifecta, an
Yeah,
executive's guide
that's
to
right.
attracting, selecting, and retaining the right talent.
I
So
love
you
it.
see how it aligns to the business,
Yes.
attract, select. So the third line of the business is also the third part of the book, which is retention. So they are all related to one another. So the third service line is retention, which is also the third part of the book. So retention gets into programs that help us further keep people. So if we attract the right people up front, we put selection processes in place to make sure they're aligned with our values of our organization. And then we get into retention programs. So things like really good onboarding that make sure that people coming in are quickly assimilated to who we are. Simple things like they know where stuff is, they have a buddy assigned so they know who to ask the questions to. Those they have 30-day, 60-day, 90-day goals. They're getting the things that they need. But very big, important piece, and most likely going to be my next book. It's already starting to be outlined, is more data from a very important study done by Gallup. I do also mention it in the book. Gallup did a study, State of the American Worker. And in that study, there were two very important things. Number one, they asked 1 million US workers, 1 million, the top reason they left a job. 75% of the people in the survey said because of a manager.
Oh, wow.
Yes, yes. And also in this same report, and you can it's in the book. The citation is there. I mentioned it multiple times in the retention section of the book. In
Sure.
this same report, Gallup did a study, so not a survey but a study, that said, based on their analysis of what it takes to be a good manager, again, US managers, of people in the US workforce, only about a third of the people in the US workforce have the natural propensity to be a good manager.
Mm.
So, if 75% of the people are leaving their job because of their manager, but only a third of the people that are in the workforce have the propensity to be a good manager, we have a disconnect. And so now, then, this is my hypothesis that I've been here based on my experience in this industry for 30 years. What I have seen is that we put the wrong people into manager jobs. The top two reasons I've seen people put in manager jobs are number one, tenure, who's been there the longest, not a good reason. And
Mm.
number two, the people that are really good at the individual contributor job are the ones that get promoted into the manager job because we're out of money to give them. In order to pay them more, they have to be promoted to a manager job because that's
Right.
where the next compensation level is.
Yeah.
Not because they have the propensity to be a good manager, not because they even want to be a manager, but because they're really good at being an engineer or being a financial analyst or being a salesperson, and we need to pay them more money to keep them, so we make them a manager. Has nothing to do with whether they can hold people accountable, whether they can motivate people, whether they're good communicators, none of these top things. But we put the longest tenured people and we put really good individual contributors into these jobs. and then people quit because those people aren't good at being managers.
Yeah.
So we have a problem. So in the retention section, service line, and things I mentioned in my book, we help people build manager selection processes. So we find the people who are good at being managers to put in those jobs. And I can also help you build compensation systems that will pay these individual contributors good money to stick around and just be good at their job and
Right,
not,
because that's what they're
right,
good at, period.
right.
Yeah.
And because what happens then, you take the smartest financial analyst and you ask them to manage people, and now nobody's as good at them at being a financial analyst, and
Yeah.
they're failing at being a manager. And they go find somewhere that will pay them more money to be a financial analyst, and other people have left because they were a bad manager.
Yeah.
And now you're replacing all these people and you're costing the company a lot of money instead of fixing your structural problem. So that's in there
Brilliant.
too. So
Brilliant.
that's pillar three of services. And
Okay.
then the last piece is the technology that supports all of this,
Mm.
because we need tools to do these things. HR is complex. Everything we do in talent is complex. And we don't want our best talent professionals spending time on administrative tasks when there are tools that help us do that. So I can help people select the right tools and point them in the right direction and optimize what they have and make sure they're just not buying shiny objects to buy shiny objects, which is a big problem right now because everybody thinks AI is going to solve all the problems. So those are kind of the four: attraction, selection, retention, and then the technology that wraps all around it. But it's all about getting the right talent in your organization and enabling your actual talent organization to do that as effectively as possible.
I love this. Thank you so much
You're
for
welcome.
that detailed answer. That's great. So, my next question to you, Kara, would be,
Yes.
would you be able to tell us a story of how your product and the way you have served a customer, the value that you've provided, just for the collective and for the listeners to understand your product
Sure.
and service?
Yes. So I'm going to tell you about a electronics manufacturing company
Sure.
based outside of Chicago.
Okay.
They came to me and with a problem that they said we have a big retention problem. Our turnover has more than doubled in like 18 months, and their immediate thought was our recruiters must be terrible when they're bringing us the wrong people. And I said, okay, well, there might be something wrong in the recruiting process, but let's step back and take a look at the entire situation. And what we found, and what was really good about this client particularly, and why I love to use them as an example, is that their entire executive suite was engaged in this project.
Cool.
Often I get like the executive suite told HR to fix it because it's obviously HR's problem. But no, the CEO, the CFO, everybody was engaged in this and they wanted this to be very much fixed. And what we dug into and found that we did have a selection problem. So when we're back to who were they bringing in the door, they had no, it was all over the place. There were no real entrance criteria, so to speak. And they couldn't pinpoint, there was no, when you talk to each, when I talked to marketing, when I talked to the technical sales team, when we talked to the engineering team, when we talked to anybody, we said, how are you evaluating candidates? What are you selecting them based on? Sometimes it was blank faces. Other times people had like a set of questions in a drawer. Other times it were different people interviewing different candidates. There was no approach at all. And they were finding that people were leaving within 6 months. They're like, we thought they knew how to do the job. So I went in with the competency approach. And we had all the C suite executives and their next level, so like the EVPs, select the competencies for the organization. And they settled, I couldn't get them to just do three. They are a very consensus driven organization. So we ended up with four for the organization. And they selected those. And then for their key driver roles, those that drove the growth of the organization, we actually went through role by role and selected competency and skill profiles for each of those key roles as well. So they were big workshops where we had competency cards and people moving all around the room. And then we trained them all interviewers, on how to interview based on competencies. So they all had to do a 2-day interview workshop with me and my team and practice interviewing. And then I trained the recruiters to train the trainer. So any new interviewers that came in, the recruiters were now training everybody. So we gave them interview guides, all the competencies. We trained everybody on everything. Within less than a year, we cut their turnover by 25%. Yes. Yes,
Congratulations.
thank you. Their CFO has now moved on to another company, but he actually comments on almost all of my LinkedIn posts where I put up case studies and things, and talks about what a great job I did for his former company.
Yes.
But we made a huge difference just on selection that ultimately impacted retention. And they're still using all the interview guides we built for them. And they have now since sent some of their team members to the full training on the competencies. And they're now adopting them for performance management and everything along those lines. So it made a huge difference in not just how they select talent, but now their retention and now how they're managing performance. So I made in
Beautiful.
a quick time frame as well, when they were really losing people very quickly.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much. What a
Sure.
wonderful story. Um, so, sorry, Kara. So I was wondering, what shifts are you seeing in your industry right now?
So it's very interesting. So you hear when you talk about recruiting and talent acquisition, you see a lot of talk in the industry about recruiters being replaced by AI. That is not at all true. And there are tasks that recruiters have traditionally done that AI can help with from an efficiency standpoint. So there are some really great things happening. So a big part of recruiters' job is, after they review resumes, they then do screening interviews of candidates. So a lot of those have moved to video, Zoom or Teams or something like that, which is great, because they used to just, when I did it, they were phone calls. And so now they're the Zoom or Teams interviews. There are great technologies out there now that are note takers that join, but they then, instead of just being the note taker, they turn all those notes into a great concise summary of the interview based on the job description. So something a recruiter historically has spent a significant amount of time doing is taking their notes from that screening interview, comparing them to the job description, and then those that they want to move forward with, turning them into this beautiful write up for the hiring manager to say, oh, I want to move forward with Carolyn, and here's my 4 paragraphs about why she's a good fit. That takes a lot of time, because you're now the sales representative for Carolyn, so to speak,
Wow.
to say, here's why I'm presenting her. She's a great candidate. These tools now take your notes, so I can have a more in-depth conversation over video with my candidate without having to write my notes or type them while I'm talking, and then go take them and make a thoughtful summary. It does it for them. So for a recruiter who could maybe conduct 6 of those interviews in a day and then have to spend their evening writing all those summaries up, the
Yes.
summaries are done for them, and they can go do other tasks or not work in the evening. And so that's a major transformation that's
Sure.
just happened in the last 18 months or so, that has gotten a lot better. And a lot of them can set up, criteria for the recruiter and then rank those summaries for them, so they can just start looking. I want to send the top 4 to my hiring manager because they only like to interview 3 people and see if they find one. So let me see these, and I'm going to send these 4 over and see who they like best. And if they only like two, I'm going to send my next ones over. It's a game changer from a
Yeah.
recruiter standpoint. It allows them to review more candidates, which has actually been a complaint of candidates because you can only look at so many resumes. And no matter what anybody on LinkedIn tells you, there are very few applicant tracking systems that are reviewing, that have AI reviewing resumes and telling recruiters who to screen. It just doesn't work that way. I implement applicant tracking systems for clients. They just don't do it. They're terrible at it, so recruiters don't trust them and they look at the resumes themselves. So the screening summary software is fantastic, and it's great because it's all been created by recruiters and not by engineers who think they know how to recruit. No offense to the engineers watching your podcast.
I'm sure there's none taken. So, does this have any effects on Meritage? Like, I'm guessing you're using this technology
Um,
yourself in
So
terms of.
I'm helping clients implement and use it. So not for
Okay.
me myself, but I'm helping clients. So like a big client like a PepsiCo, while they had put something in just as I started working with them with PepsiCo, I'm helping them build their sourcing strategy for how they're
Sure.
finding their hard to fill positions around the world. But they had just put in a solution like this when I first started working with them. And I was like, oh, this is fantastic. So I'm helping them think about now that they have freed up time from screening,
Yes.
how can recruiters repurpose their free time for finding these hard to find candidates in their sourcing activity and create more of a meaningful connection with
Sure.
candidates before they apply. So even a big brand in the world like a PepsiCo, here in the US and Canada, we know PepsiCo and they are known as a brand that you really want to work for. It's not so much the case for PepsiCo in Europe. They don't have quite the positive brand recognition that PepsiCo does here in North America. So it's a little bit of a challenge for their European recruiters where candidates with the same skills would rather work for some of the pharmaceutical companies where there are other brands, consumer packaged goods brands that are European specific that have a stronger brand recognition. So their
Wow.
European recruiters have a much harder time finding salespeople and supply chain people in Europe than they do here in the US. Top candidates in those areas want to work for PepsiCo here in the US, and they do more screening than out searching for top candidates like they have to do in Europe. And even they have a big sales and supply chain function in South Africa. We don't have the PepsiCo doesn't have quite the brand recognition there either. So when you talk about these global brands, it's all very regional and very
Mhm.
different than what we're used to seeing here in North America. So it just becomes very different.
And then there's so many nuances, eh?
Yes.
And
Yes.
factors to take into consideration for
Yes.
companies and jobs. Oh wow. Where do you see Meritage Talent Solutions in 6 months to a year from now, Kara?
Great question. Um, Sometimes when you are this small, you go the direction where the work is. But I see with a couple of my clients, you grow. They are looking for growth and restructuring of their talent acquisition teams. So I definitely see some of that activity there. I'd like to move where I'm headed into more projects like the one I told you about with the
Yeah.
electronics company, with working more with the C-suites. And a lot of where I'm focused, my speaking part of my business is looking to speak more to executives about the business of talent and helping them understand where what we do on the talent teams directly ties to the bottom line in business. Because often, sometimes we in talent and HR get dismissed because we're not always using the best business language when we talk about what we do. Because when we talk about it inside the HR and talent communities, we use HR and talent language, and our internal business customers don't always relate to that language. So I'd like to kind of flip a lot of what I do to helping business executives understand how the things that we're doing all the way up in that attraction part of the business is really directly tied to how the business makes profit. And we need to be investing more and staying with it for longer than most businesses usually are comfortable to see the longer term return on investment. And that was a lot of why I wrote the book, because the book is written actually for business executives and corporate leaders, not for HR people. HR people have plenty of books to read, and they're all wonderful. And I know many of the authors that wrote them. I'm like, I don't have anything to add to HR leaders, but
Mm-hmm.
it was the engagements where the executives were involved, and that I was saying, okay, I'm now talking your language, and you are understanding why we're doing what we're doing. And I would come back like a year later, like that example of the company in Chicago, where they were seeing these results and they were implementing all the things that I recommended
Yeah.
because I was talking to them in their language and they were like, oh, I never thought about it like that. Because sometimes HR and talent seems fluffy and extraneous because we're talking in that language that HR people were taught, not in the business language that we need to get the business people to understand. And it's no fault of either side. We've just been talking past each other. So when we can get a common set of conversations, and that's kind of a little bit of a mission that I'm on now. So when I do speaking engagements in the HR community, it's all focused on, I need you to change how you're talking about this so you get what you want. I'm not telling you anything you've done is wrong. I'm just telling you, get their attention with things that matter to them, talk
Mm-hmm.
about it their way so you ultimately get what you want. And then when I talk to the business leaders, it's like, hey, I need you to just think about this a little differently. Let me draw you some parallels. Let me show you how what we do in recruiting selection is exactly like your supply chain over there. And how what we do in recruiting attraction is exactly the same as your product marketing plan. And then they just are like, oh, that's why we shouldn't stop paying for things when hiring has slowed down. Because you wouldn't stop paying attention to your customers or your pipeline if for some reason your production line stopped or your manufacturing facility flooded and you had to stop production for 2 months. You wouldn't just stop talking to your customers. But when our hiring slows down or stops for whatever reason, all of a sudden executives want us to just act like we've never hired anybody before and we shouldn't talk to anybody that we've ever done anything and we should fire all of our recruiters. And then whenever we do start hiring again, they wonder why we can't just suddenly put people in seats 3 days later. Well, no one
Mm-hmm.
knows anything about us, and we stop talking to the people who were interested. If I went and told the chief revenue officer or whoever's the head of sales to stop talking to the customers and firing all your salespeople,
Yeah.
they would laugh at me
Yeah.
because our manufacturing is shut down because the plant flooded. They would think that was insane. Yet we ask recruiting to do that stuff all the time. When I frame it that way, people are like, oh, I see
Mm-hmm.
what you're saying.
It's genius. It sounds a lot like marketing.
Yes, it's exactly like marketing, Carolyn. Recruiting is exactly like sales and marketing.
Yeah.
Things we do in recruiting have parallels to
Yeah.
sales and marketing in so many ways. It's an opportunity, not an iPhone. It's
Yeah.
it's a job, not a widget of any sort. But it's the exact same concept. And recruiters have turned into some of the best salespeople when they change
Yeah.
careers.
Well, that's what you're doing essentially,
Yes,
marketing for great talent, right?
it's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And that's also a great thing whenever recruiting does slow down, and I mentioned that at one point in the book, move your recruiters into customer support, move
Mm,
them into sales and marketing, put them on temporary assignment. Even if you don't have jobs to fill today, they are amazing representatives of your company. They know your company inside and out. They talk about it all day long. Put them temporarily in other parts of the organization to boost that up. And they're going to be even better recruiters when you're recruiting returns because they will have seen and worked in other parts of the company. Heck, have them then recruit for customer support because they would have been a customer support person. And they will make it, I mean, the skills recruiters have are so
yes,
transferable to
yes,
so many other parts of the business that
yes.
to just let them go and then go hire brand new people who don't know who you are, don't understand your values, don't know how to evaluate for your competencies, you're starting cold again. It doesn't make any sense. We wouldn't do it with salespeople.
Well, I would like to take this opportunity to thank you, Kara, for speaking to us. And for everyone, it's Kara Yarnot, Kara, Karayanot. And it's been a pleasure chatting with you. And if anyone wants to reach Kara at meritagetalent.com, that's her
Correct.
website. And you can also reach her through her LinkedIn profile, through her name. And
Yep.
Kara, I was wondering if in closing you can remind us of the title of your book, and
Yes.
also if you have anything else to add
Sure.
of wisdom for our
Sure.
listeners.
The book is the Talent Trifecta. You can find it on Amazon. It's both paperback and Kindle edition. And the book has a website too. It's talenttrifectabook.com. You can get to it from the company website as well. So you can find it. You can find it there. And any business leaders listening, I would just encourage you to read the book, but encourage you to just partner with your HR and talent leaders and learn a little bit more about what they're doing, and how it really impacts the bottom line of the business. But I encourage anybody to connect with me on LinkedIn. I am the only Kara Yarnot out there, so I'm easy to find. And Carolyn, I thank you so much. This has been great fun, and I
Yes.
appreciate you inviting me to be a guest on your podcast.
Oh, you're so welcome. It's been an honor having you. And yes, have yourself a very wonderful evening.
Same to you.